Hello, everybody, and welcome to the My BFF Business Leaders Podcast. This podcast is designed to focus the spotlight on leading voices throughout the world of business. From marketing and technology to energy and finance, this podcast will feature brilliant minds that are shaping the future of every industry. There has never been a better time to make more business friends forever, so let's get started.
We're able to focus our energies on each of our clients, and that's really what separates My BFF. Looking at, we're not out to have 100 clients. We're out to have, 10 really good, solid clients that we can just service the hell out of. And that's what this business is all about.
My name is Colton Hauer. I'm an account executive and social media specialist at My BFF Social. Today, I'm excited to bring on our guest for this episode, who also just happens to be my boss, Matt Gentile. Matt is the founder and managing director of My BFF Social, a full-scale digital marketing agency based out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Prior to starting up his own agency, Matt was the global director of public relations and social media for the Century 21 brand. While at Century 21, Matt was viewed as a pioneer, being one of the first professionals to take advantage of the rapid growth of social media at a corporate brand level. To say he is a well-traveled individual would be an understatement, and his story is one that you will want to tune in for. So let's dive right into it. So Matt, we've known each other for a few years now, but in your own words, could you tell the listeners who exactly is Matt Gentile?
Sure. Well, I was born and raised here in Pittsburgh, son of a steelworker. My mother was a medical lab technician, which, considering everything that's going on today, I think her skill set could certainly be used right now. I earned my bachelor's degree in science from Clarion University, a couple of hours north of Pittsburgh, before, like a lot of folks, in the 80s and 90s, and even early 2000s, migrated elsewhere for work, especially in the marketing industry. I ended up going to Washington, D.C. I worked for a strategic communications firm called the Rendon Group, and it's there that I, really cut my teeth on the industry. I had the opportunity to travel and work throughout Europe and the Middle East. And in fact, the group I worked with was part of the first American contingency back in Kuwait after its occupation by Iraqi forces in the 90s. So, after, putting in my time, I guess, in Washington, D.C., I circled back to Pittsburgh, worked a couple of statewide judicial races in the mid-90s, volunteered and worked on the Bill Clinton campaign during that time. And I guess it was around November, it was about 4 degrees, and decided it was time to move to Florida. So I ended up in Sarasota, Florida for 10 years, and that's when I got involved in real estate marketing. And it was around this time that Facebook kind of entered the scene. And I really looked at Facebook for business immediately. So after managing PR and communications for the state's largest residential real estate company for 4 years, the Century 21 brand came calling. They were based in New Jersey, and they asked me to come up and run their PR and social media programs for the global brand. It was about this time I had the opportunity to, really dive deep into brand management and how social media can really impact, a brand and a business, as we kind of, went from, A to Z as it relates to, marketing, everything from 2 Superbowl campaigns, one which featured our current president, and taking over YouTube's homepage, the banner. We did national campaigns, as well as social media marketing efforts, and it really taking hold of a global brand's social media handles and creating the leading social media platform for the largest residential real estate brand in the world. So it really gave me a lot of exposure and opportunity to kind of get my hands dirty and really dive into the industry and understand, all that marketing and social media has to offer a business.
Yeah, that is a pretty incredible story, and definitely have your experience in traveling as well. Is there any kind of specific location that stuck out to you or that you enjoyed the most out of this kind of business travel that you experienced?
I'd say, there's a few places that stick in my mind. Certainly having the opportunity to visit Egypt, spent some time in Cairo, and then traveled south to Luxor, saw the temple of King Tut's tomb, and the temple of Karnak, the pyramids, rode a camel. Stateside, I guess, one of the most beautiful spots that stays with me is San Diego. We had the opportunity to speak at Social Media Marketing World a couple of years. And just the city itself and the surroundings of San Diego, it's a really beautiful place.
And is it safe? Would you safe to say that kind of a campaign that would have stuck out during all those different experiences would have been the Super Bowl campaign with Donald Trump?
Yeah. There's a couple of campaigns that stay with me in my time with Century 21 and managing the global brand. Certainly, both of the Super Bowl campaigns were unique and different in their own way. And it's really, when you talk about public relations and you're going to school and you're thinking about, what am I getting into here? Having an opportunity to work in and around a Super Bowl ad campaign is kind of like climbing the tallest mountain, right? So,
Absolutely.
and the opportunity to experience that level of publicity and shape the brand's plans and be able to achieve the type of success that we did was pretty extraordinary. I mean, the amount of spend and the amount of attention is like nothing else. There's really nothing else in the U.S. other than globally at the World Cup level where you're going to get that level of exposure for your brand. And there's a reason it costs so much, right? I think
absolutely.
The ad time was $4 million for an ad back then. And that doesn't include what you're spending to produce the ad, what you're spending, any of the talent that happens to be on the ad. I think at that time, President Trump's take was, somewhere in the neighborhood of, a couple of $1 million. So, having high price stars like that certainly, helped the ad achieve the attention. And that was the goal, right? So brand awareness and brand preference. We also had Deion Sanders and Apollo Ono in the ad, right? So it was an impressive lineup, and it certainly achieved. I think it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 billion media impressions. So wow. It was pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, I absolutely. And I can imagine. And I think from my perspective and for our listeners, we'd love to kind of hear a little bit more about what the strategy was behind the campaign itself. I liked how you kind of touched on the intention enhancement. And was it like an all hands on deck at Century 21 with your marketing team to execute this campaign? Or kind of how did you guys go about those days prior to execution?
Oh, no, definitely. We had all hands on deck. It was, all teams had a role, from the online marketing team to my team with social media and PR, to the field, to those folks that were in touch with our franchisees, to make sure they could leverage every bit of exposure that we earned through the campaign. So pretty advanced marketing for sure.
Absolutely. So then after your time at Century 21, kind of what was the next steps that you took, and what did it ultimately lead to you starting your own agency?
Sure. So I was telling you there were two campaigns that stuck out in my mind, and this kind of leads into your question. The second campaign was something that we had worked on as social media evolved with the agency at that time who we were working with. They were called Mullen out of Boston. And our team lead at that time was Eric Montague. And he has since started his own ad agency called Sleek Machine in Boston, which produces some absolutely incredible work. And we developed in tandem, kind of co-developed what we called the digital drumbeat. And what the digital drumbeat was, it really enabled, brands that, did big things like the Century 21 brand to be on air and in front of their audience throughout the year with, what we called the digital drumbeat, which were smaller but highly creative, certainly, more cost efficient campaigns that would only run on social. So you didn't have the media expense that you would have with television advertising. You were able to, really knock out a bunch of these. We might do 4 campaigns in a month, right? So it was a continual drumbeat of highly produced, highly creative, low cost, creative ad executions and campaigns. And the one that sticks out is we had an opportunity to kind of take advantage of the timing of it was the show Breaking Bad was coming to its conclusion. So on the season finale, we ended up making a play where we would sell Walter White's home, the fictional character Walter White, from Century 21, right? We had a call-in number, we had an 800 number. So as the show's final episode, we put Walter White's home up for sale, and it garnered a ton of publicity. We earned 80 million media impressions just from that social media PR campaign, and we ended up winning 14 major national and international marketing awards. Wow. So everything from the One Show to a Webby, to the Andy Award for bravery in advertising. So some really cool stuff to be involved in, and kind of the apex of what we were doing with social media and the brand, and what you could do in that space at that time. So I think we took it as far as we could take it to the edge. We certainly, disrupted some notions of traditional marketing, and I think ushered in, or certainly, played a role in ushering in a new form of marketing that was more than just real time, but took advantage of the technologies available to us to, kind of marry the concepts between promotion, PR, and social media, and advertising. And yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely. And the main question I had is, obviously there's major corporations out there that are very, very stern in kind of their social media strategy overall. And a lot of people would kind of provide a lot of backlash if they were to try to market Walter White's house through a major corporation's social media channels. Kind of how did you balance that? And did you receive any backlash of your own internally when trying to move forward with that campaign?
Yeah, there was definitely some pushback and some reservations. To be frank, as a director in that organization, I had a lot of flexibility, especially in the social media space, because it wasn't well known at that point. And it certainly wasn't given the same level of credence as you would get with, say, television advertising, right? So I don't think anyone expected that campaign to take off and gain the amount of exposure that it did, and it certainly created some raised eyebrows from our legal team and corporate. But the overwhelming positive reception that the campaign received far outweighed any of the the backlash or the second thoughts about what had occurred there or should it have occurred. I think, the industry at large and the real estate industry, it took what is a fairly staid, kind of traditional marketing industry and really kind of lit a fuse under it and took it in a different direction and did something different here. So, but yeah, it definitely created some some challenges for management on that.
Absolutely. And was it difficult with kind of all the success that you found with those campaigns to leave Century 21 ultimately?
Yeah, it wasn't that hard for me. It was a natural, moment in life. Everything has a time and place. My parents were both back here in Pittsburgh, and I wanted to be closer to them as they got a bit older. Turned out to be a real blessing because my mother passed last year. So super happy that I was able to have the opportunity to live nearby and spend as much time as I did with her. Now I'm happy to have the same, have time with my dad. He's 75, still going strong, and he still outdrives me on the golf course. So, God willing, he's able to do that for another 10 years. So, I'm happy to be back in Pittsburgh and bring my expertise and knowledge. Not only in this market, but in the digital space, we can service clients anywhere in the world, whether I'm in the New York media market or back home here in Pittsburgh.
Awesome. And how would you kind of describe to somebody that's not really aware of your firm, My BFF Social, what exactly is the meaning behind the business and the concept?
Well, the concept for My BFF Social really evolved from the type of marketing I was doing as social media became a major force in business marketing in general. The idea developed out of a necessity to be able to explain to business people who were not as familiar with social media the benefits of engaging with consumers through these new channels, right? BFF started out as a way to convey that idea of growing your business network, business friends forever, BFF. It was just a clever way to market the brand and really was suggested by a peer of mine, Erica Ayotte, who's another colleague from Boston.
Absolutely. And today, more than ever before, we're seeing kind of digital marketing firms and social media experts, so to say, kind of pop up all over the place and absolutely in the Pittsburgh market as well. What's one thing kind of that you would say My BFF Social does differently than all these other agencies and competitors?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about digital Drumbeat, and that is a concept that I brought with me here to My BFF. So, being able to develop highly creative, inexpensive campaigns for brands and businesses to be able to execute in a relatively condensed time frame. So you're getting really high quality creative production, and you're marrying that to social media distribution and knowledge of the ad networks. For me, that's where our bread and butter is. That's the value proposition. And quite frankly, everyone needs it. From the mom and pop pizza shop to, the global energy conglomerate. These are all, businesses that, require, brand awareness, brand preference, and lead generation. And that's what we focus on.
And do you at My BFF Social focus on a strategy with your clients on specific social media platforms, or do you handle more of an omnichannel approach?
That's a good question. We look at it through an omnichannel approach. We really take a deep dive into each of our clients' business, try and truly understand what it is they're trying to achieve from a business generation perspective, and then marry the solutions that work best to meet those objectives. So, understanding, what it is that the client is wanting to achieve, and what are the best programs that can help them achieve that goal.
Absolutely. And would you say that My BFF To go back on that point, some agencies specialize in a particular business vertical. Does my BFF focus on one business vertical specifically?
Yeah, the majority of our clients are in some form of professional services, finance, real estate, hospitality, energy, but we also have clients that are in the medical space. Certainly here in the city of Pittsburgh, medical is a significant chunk of the local economy, and we also service restaurant clients and municipalities. So we're currently managing the social media for a municipal authority. So, like I said, everyone needs expertise when it comes to social media. So many people are spending so much more time on their digital devices, especially now that we're in lockdown here with COVID-19. But bottom line, tried and true marketing techniques work. We're able to focus our energies on each of our clients, and that's really what separates my BFF. Looking at, we're not out to have 100 clients. We're out to have 10 really good, solid clients that we can just service the hell out of, and that's what this business is all about.
Absolutely. And you definitely touched on it there, of that now more than ever before, people are more active on social media and digital channels because they're forced to stay at home and social distance due to the COVID-19 virus. And I feel like we'd be doing a disservice if we didn't bring it up in this conversation. So is there any sort of kind of recommendations for businesses that are already on social or might not be kind of pursuing digital marketing at all at this time that you would highly, highly recommend to those individuals and professionals?
Yes, all businesses right now should be focused on staying top of mind with their customers. During this downtime, and we don't know when this is going to end. It may end at the end of April, May, June, July. There's kind of a different take on the news every evening, right? So it's hard to understand when we're going to return to normal and what normal looks like when we get there. So right now it's more important than ever to continuously remind your customers of your value proposition, whether it's newsletters, email, social media posts, online advertising, hell, even how about a podcast like we're doing today, right? You want to, find different media venues and channels to make sure that your value proposition is being conveyed. All of these tactics should be considered in an effort to stay in front of your customers. Thinking of different creative ways to add value. As I said, because people have a lot of time on their hands right now, it's a great time to get in front and stay in front of your customer throughout this period in our nation's history. Think about free webinars, phone consultations, coaching, all great ways, to help your customers and position your business for future growth.
Absolutely. And you touched on it there as well, is that there's just so many channels that people can pursue and market their business and their brand to nowadays. Do you feel like social media has evolved into just another ad platform like Google AdWords or pay-per-click? Or kind of what have you seen in your overall experience since you basically were here at the start and the initiation of social media as a business platform in general?
Yeah, platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter have they've developed their platforms to such an extent that in order to reach your customers, you really have to advertise. These ad platforms are robust. They've been around for years, and they enable a great deal of creativity. But you're just not going to get a ton of organic reach. Now, there are newer platforms out there that are continuing to develop, like TikTok, that take the media in a new direction or offer value for brands and businesses to get in while the organic reach is still available. After being in the industry for the last 15 years, you kind of see a natural cycle develop. But in my opinion, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube remain the 800-pound gorillas in the space. And if you want to play, you just have to pay. That's just, advertising works. There's a reason, you want to make sure you're continuously in front of your customers to make sure you're top of mind, not only as we go through this, but as we come to the other side of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And those are fantastic insights. And the only way that we can kind of finish up this podcast in a unique way for my BFF Social and our team is we'd like to close it off with a lightning round to learn more about who you are, Matt Gentile, kind of outside of the professional world, so to speak. So I'm going to rifle off 5 questions to you just about kind of your personal history and hobbies and interests of sorts. Don't need a whole lot of explanation with these answers. Just feel free to respond as you see fit. But let's start it off with when you were young, what did you envision being when you ultimately grew up and became a professional?
I always had an ability to write. So I knew I would be a writer in some form or fashion. Obviously I thought I might be the next, Hemingway, write the great American novel. But economic needs get in the way of that. So I ended up in the advertising and PR industry, and it's been a hell of a ride.
And a more personal question here, but what was the first car you ever owned?
It was a 1979 maroon Chevy Chevette 4-door hatchback.
Very specific.
Yeah, we just called it the Vet. That's all.
Okay. And if you were stranded on a deserted island and could only bring one thing, the non-essential item for entertainment purposes, so no food, no water, what would you bring?
Wow. Stranded on an island, and I need something for entertainment.
Yeah, no working around with saying normal food or water just to survive. It's all about the entertainment.
I think I'd have to go with a iPod.
What music would you be listening to on the iPod?
Well, since we're on an island, I might go with some reggae.
Okay, very fitting. So how about if you could sit down and have a conversation with anyone in the world right now, who would you choose and why?
Right now, I'd like to sit down with Bill Gates and pick his brain. I've seen him a lot on coverage of COVID-19 over the past several weeks, and I feel like he's a step ahead in terms of understanding its impact on, not only on our health, but on the society at large, and what that's going to mean for all of us in the long run.
Absolutely. And the final question I have for you today is, what's the one thing on your bucket list outside of like kind of a work or professional goals that you are really trying to cross off in 2020, and the number one thing that you're trying to accomplish?
I'll keep it simple. I am currently in the process of training my high school whose now a junior, to drive. So having him be able to to drive the car safely and not wreck it too many times is number one on my list. In terms of bucket list, maybe it's a trip, maybe do some travel to Europe. I'd love to get back to the UK and visit my friends in London again.
Awesome. Yeah, I definitely think both of those are great goals to accomplish. So that's all that we have today. Matt, really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us. Is there any kind of final words that you want to throw out to the listeners?
I just want to thank you, Colton. Thank you for, leading the My BFF Business Podcast. I think it's going to be a fantastic show. I look forward to having many, many more guests. And, I hope it is insightful for our audience, and I hope they enjoy it.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Matt, and look forward to talking to you all soon. Thanks for tuning in.